Okay, so welcome everybody. Hope you're having a good evening so far. Um, so the next 2 Fridays, we're going to explore a practice compiled by Lama Zopa Rinpoche called, um, it was called, so now it has a new title, How to Make My Life Wish Fulfilling, Method to Transform a Suffering Life into Happiness. Um, and so we'll just go through the stanzas and have it be a kind of kind of a workshop together. So we'll read a stanza together and then see what comes up, discuss, and so on. Um, I thought the first thing we could do, maybe since we don't all have the refuge prayer in front of us, we can just do the four measurables. So I'll read the four measurable. This isn't in the text, just as a kind of motivation to start. We can just contemplate it. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. And may all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from desire for friends and hatred for enemies. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from desire for friends and hatred for enemies. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from desire for friends and hatred for enemies. Maybe we'll just sit in silent meditation for a minute, just to settle before we start. Okay, great. So can you see the practice show up? So I thought maybe I'll just read aloud the kind of opening advice for just saying the context of this practice. Is anybody familiar with this practice at all? This practice? Yeah. Um, so this is Rinpoche's giving context for the practice. So at the beginning of each day, after you open your eyes, until enlightenment is achieved and until death, and especially today, so that all the activities of your body, speech, and mind, hearing, thinking, and meditating, as well as walking, sitting, sleeping, doing your job, and so on, do not become causes of suffering and instead become causes of happiness, and especially that they become causes to achieve Buddhahood. That is, that you transform them into a method for accomplishing benefit and happiness for all sentient beings. Here is a method for transforming the mind into holy Dharma and especially into bodhichitta. Yeah. So it's kind of an intention setting practice, and it's also kind of a glance meditation or contemplation on the entire path. So in this practice, um, Rinpoche's kind of put a few different things together. He's put first is the kind of what's called a lamrim prayer, the prayer of the gradual path. So like looking at all the stages of the path, and then he's added um, some extra verses. Um, Most of them are for are bodhichitta verses, so verses to kind of start to start to work on the heart opening practices of bodhicitta. And so he's taking verses from a few different practices, and the end mostly verses from Shantideva's Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. And so there's that aspect of the practice where of these prayers and kind of reflections. And then there's some other meditations that we can use to maybe enhance if we want to, where like purifying our speech and kind of doing some purification visualizations and chanting mantras as ways to kind of enhance or kind of support the practice as a way of like blessing from through mantra practice. So there's contemplating the path, bodhicitta, and then we can use mantra practice. And next week we'll get into the mantra. I think this week we'll just work on the verses, see where we get. Um, but the pure the so we can do these verses either silently in our minds or um, if you want to see them out loud. And Shay, if you're interested in doing like the purification of speech first, you can do that practice before you do it and then you recite. It's just a suggestion. Um, yeah. Yeah. Okay. I think maybe I'll just go ahead and start with the verses. I was wondering. Yeah, I guess I would say like it's so doing these kind of glance meditations on the path is a way to um, kind of broaden our perspective instead of just like, what am I doing today, or what am I going to have for breakfast? Like that thought can take place, but we can also have it within a context of um, reflecting on this kind of vast kind of map of um, kind of all the core aspects of the spiritual path. So elements of our life, and then also the elements of our potential that we can cultivate, and then yeah, and so then that can become, it broadens perspective, and also it can start to help us cultivate a quality of intention, so that it can be the kind of a kind of mounting pad for developing this kind of intention, so that we're living kind of bringing this kind of intention in view into our day. So when we're going to work, we're doing things that's kind of in the backdrop of why we're actually, we're starting to broaden our context for why we're alive, basically, and what we want to do with our life. Um, so okay, so first couple verses. So essence encompassing all the Buddhas, originator of all the holy Dharma of scripture and realization, principle of all the Aryas intending virtue, in the glorious holy Gurus I take refuge. Please, Gurus, bless my mind to become Dharma, Dharma to become the path, and the path to be without obstacles. Yeah, so the first section of the contemplation is on the relationship to the teacher. Um, yeah, and Rinpoche has a commentary on this text, which I recommend. Um, and she mentioned in the commentary the second verse: "Bless my mind to become Dharma, Dharma to become the path, and the path to be without obstacles." Um, a lot of ways, there's a lot of different traditions kind of explain these lines. And Rinpoche was saying that, looking at the three different scopes of the path. So, bless my mind to become Dharma is just turning our mind towards spiritual practice, and that's called the kind of lower scope. So, basically, traditionally, um, yeah, traditionally, it's like avoiding the kind of suffering states of existence and taking refuge. The Dharma to become the path is the middle. It's called the middle scope of spiritual pursuit is just the attainment of kind of self liberation. So just having that inner freedom of um, nirvana, or self nirvana, or waking to emptiness. And then the path to be without obstacle is kind of the bodhisattva path of um, full Buddhahood. Um, yeah, then the next verse: until I achieve Buddhahood, please bless me to be like youthful Norsong and Bodhisattva, always crying, and correctly following the virtuous friend with pure thought and action, seeing whatever is done as pure, and accomplishing whatever is said and advised. So in Rinpoche's commentary, these two bodhisattvas, Norsong and Bodhisattva, always crying, were these kind of famous examples of just very devotional kind of service attitude to their teachers. Um, Rinpoche gave a story of Bodhisattva always crying. Like, one example was his, his teacher was going to give teachings that day, and it was a dusty area, and so he used water to kind of tamp down the dust. And he ran out of water, and he was so devoted he didn't want dust to like kind of fly up when his teacher came, that he used his own blood, to with the dust. Um, so it's kind of this like 100, this kind of um, very kind of devoted service, um, Bodhisattva. Um, yeah, what are, what comes up for, yeah, and also want to say, like, whenever we go through these verses, like whatever our response is, like feel free to share like what's coming up for them, coming up for you, like questions, uh, puzzlement, because there are some difficult or kind of challenging verses in here that we can that will come up later. So, any thoughts on this verse? Questions?
So, from the question, um, the lesson of the speech and then some mantras that multiply the merit of reciting sutras wouldn't be more beneficial. Say we're starting off with the lesson of the speech and then the diatom, Gary Swaha before you read this, and that way reading this will be multiplied over 100,000 times or something.
Yeah. Yeah, so Rinpoche said, yeah. So if you wanted to engage in that, do the blessing first, and then if you were reading this text out loud, do the blessing speech first, and then read it. Yeah.
We did not hear the question.
Yeah. That's true.
What was the question from the audience?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Lou was asking if you were going to read this out loud, wouldn't it be kind of nicer to do the blessing of the speech and the multiplying mantras first before reading out loud? That way you can, it's kind of enhancement, and yeah, that's how it's advised. Yeah, and we'll come back. We'll keep going. Come back to some points unless somebody has a question. So next verse. So please bless me to see that this greatly meaningful body with freedoms and richnesses is difficult to find and easily perishes. That action and result are so profound, and that sufferings of the evil, gone, transmigratory beings are so difficult to bear. Therefore, please bless me to take refuge from the depths of my heart in the three rare sublime ones, to abandon negative karma and to accomplish virtue according to Dharma. So this goes through topics. Each line has a different kind of topic. So the first one, bless me to see this greatly meaningful body with freedoms and richnesses. This is developing the attitude, gratitude for our precious human life, topic of precious human life. So freedoms and richnesses, or yeah, leisures and opportunities, a lot of different ways it's translated. Seeing that we have capacity to practice Dharma, we have the interest and inclination, we have the connection to resources, to kind of utilize this, kind of tap into this potential. The next line is difficult to find, each living perishes, so it's reflecting on impermanence and death. Action and result is karmic cause and effect. It's profound. So, and the sufferings of the evil gone, transmigratory beings, so difficult to bear. So these four lines are also called the four reminders. So human life's precious, don't know when it's going to end. karmic cause and effect pervades everything. Like nothing is random. Everything is kind of held within causality, karmic causality. And here, the evil gone transmigratory beings is beings of lower, so like go three lower realms of animals, kind of ghost beings in a ghost like experience, and kind of hellish realms. Yeah, and so the four reminders are used to, or the four reminders to turn our mind towards spiritual practice. It's a great opportunity. I don't know how long I have it for. Like our spiritual development's not going to randomly happen. Like there's causality. Like we have to develop ourselves in the same way we develop and avoid developing our suffering patterns. And then there's just beings who are in less fortunate situations where they don't have the capacity or opportunity to be able to reflect on oneself and cultivate oneself because they're just overwhelmed by suffering or just overwhelmed by their condition. And so on the basis of that, in the traditional stages of the path, these four contemplations would lead us into the interest in taking refuge. So, seeing the karma, there's a causality to happiness. We want to connect with and take refuge in, or take direction in that which causes happiness. So the three rare sublime ones is another phrase for the three jewels, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. And then, and with refuge in three jewels, it's also we're taking refuge in nonviolence. So we're taking refuge kind of in nonviolence, non-harming, ethical conduct. It's usually kind of a package with refuge. Like in refuge vow ceremony, take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha as kind of your spiritual orientation or direction, kind of your central. That's like your central way of you understanding the path. And then there's also opportunity to take the 5 precepts to avoid killing, stealing, lying, sexual misconduct, intoxication. So we take refuge in nonviolence and ethics, and then we also, it's just as our base, and then to help us kind of pacify our life situation. If our life's kind of a mess and we sit down and try to, we're just slapping people, freaking out, all that stuff. We try to sit down and meditate. It's the meditation is there's not going to be a lot of congruence there, or it's going to be a lot of cleanup work, and it's going to be constant, just kind of clean up what I just did the last 5 hours, whatever. And so the kind of nonviolence becomes like a basis for growth and development. So that creates the causes of kind of like peace, almost like cleaning it's almost like having a nice clean house and environment where you can sit and quiet and contemplate. Ethics creates this kind of internal and external atmosphere and conditions where we can take refuge and develop the kind of profundity and kind of our Buddha nature, and explore the Dharma in its depths and start to actually grow and develop profoundly. Yeah. Yeah, and so this traditionally is called you see the bottom line is the graduated path of the lower capable being. So that's just the basics of just trying to avoid painful situations in this life and then also in the future lives. So ethics and refuge become this kind of basis for the continuity of future lives also being having positive, peaceful conditions, positive, peaceful environments, positive, peaceful friendships, finding, and also connections to the teaching so that we can continue this kind of long journey. That's the idea. Any thoughts, questions, comments on that last verse?
Justin, what is the evil gone? What does that mean? I can't. The evil gone transmigratory being, but what is the evil gone?
Yeah, it's that might be like I don't know what the Tibetan word is. Um, uh, yeah, it refers to animals, and not that animals are evil. It's an interesting translation. It's what would you say? Yeah, animal realm, ghosts, beings who are born in kind of a ghost experience, or hell experience, and usually those are kind of the karmic causes for that, or some sort of kind of suffering karma, some kind of harmful karma. So animal realm, um, it's usually characterized um, ignorance, yeah, by ignorance. Um, Whereas just like there's just a limitation of their cognitive abilities. Traditional teachings, I think there's argument how smart, how sensitive people are. It's kind of a more blanket statement. There's a lot of, I think, nuance in the animal realm that tradition doesn't, you know, like dolphins are super intelligent. Whales have these kind of complex languages and that we're discovering potentially. Um, Octopus are super. We don't even know. They might be aliens. They say because they're so. They actually don't really match anything else on the planet. I guess. Um, yeah, and then like ghost, kind of ghost realm. It's like it's the karmic energy of like depravity, addiction, and kind of attachment, like miserly, like really intense miserliness. Um, Miserliness is such a loaded word, but just kind of like kind of a depravity karma that leads. They call them hungry. That state is like a hungry ghost, where there's just kind of insatiable kind of um, need of nourishment and the lack of the capacity to find nourishment, like just the karmic conditions of that experience. It's like there's just this constant need for nourishment and sense of lack, and there's just no capacity to fulfill it. Um, yeah, so from the Buddhist point of view, the consciousness, um, the, uh, it's kind of thrown into that experience by what they call throwing karma. It's like the kind of the main kind of karma that kind of repels the being to kind of get stuck in that kind of karmic experience. But the realm is the experience of their own mental projection. It's the kind of projection and kind of the creation of their own karmic energy that eventually runs out, and then same with the third lower realm, the hell experience, hell realm. So the same kind of karmic energy of violence, terror, um, like really intense discord, where it just becomes this extreme kind of claustrophobic terror, like a nightmare kind of experience. Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of interesting translation. I don't know what the Tibetan word is because there is a word for like negativity, dikpa in Tibetan. It's kind of a literal connotation of like evil or sin or something. I don't know if that's what the word is. Any comments, Susan? Any thoughts on that?
No, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, it's a difficult topic in Western society because we have those concepts in theistic traditions, and they're applied non-skillfully sometimes, to say the least. So it's like they come off as like propaganda or just some be problematic. But yeah, so they do exist also in the Buddhist worldview. But it's a self-created kind of karmic experience. It's almost like we have bad dreams where like I do whenever I watch a strange movie and I fall asleep and I have kind of dreams like it's kind of this kind of created by the impact of our actions and the imprints in our minds and our activity. No. Yeah, and some uh, look at it from a psychological angle as well, like looking at the kind of main kind of emotional charge of those three of all six realms. So animal realms kind of flavor is ignorance or dullness, kind of kind of just like a dull kind of pursuit of comfort. Um, and then yeah, the kind of intense obsession, feeling impoverished, malnourished. Addiction is kind of the hungry ghost realm. Uh, and yeah, hell realms is anger, and there's hot anger and cold anger, and we can experience that where we get really hot-headed, and there's also that cold anger where we hold it in, and kind of very cold and apathetic and frustrated internally. And then the human realm is kind of attachment is usually what it's called, like kind of dramatic attachment. And then there's two god realms. There's a competitive god realm, the jealous god realm, where it's kind of jealousy and it's kind of hyper competitive of like wanting to, yeah, like there's like it's like arrogance in competition, like you're arrogant, but there's still, it's like there's a billionaire who's got more money than I do or something like that. There's like there's some sort of mixture of that. So there's like kind of a competitiveness or jealousy in the god realm. That's what's usually, and then the a jealous god realm, and then the god realm itself is like just kind of a blissful ignorance. It's kind of just enjoying with the kind of blind perspective of everything else, like that suffering doesn't exist. Yeah. Yeah.
Go through your life here in the human realm. We built up all this positive karma and all this goodness. And then you get one God realm. It's like you lost the water because it made you pleasurable. After so you end up back in hell. Mm-hmm. So I don't understand why it seems to be important.
Yeah.
A really bad place to go.
Yeah. Yeah, Lou was saying, so like with the God realm, like you do all this positive stuff, you create all this very positive, powerful energy, and you end up in the God realm, but then it's actually kind of like you say you've lost the lottery, or yeah, like because it's like you burn up all that positive force, and then back, they say it's like it's like the worst Monday, like worst case of the Mondays you could ever have. They say, you're just the greatest vacation of your life, and then then it's over, and the alarm clock wakes up, and you don't have that anymore. And they say the fall is strong. We can experience that where we're so attached to something in this kind of way we're enjoying, and then it's over, and then we thought we had it. We thought finally. But then, it's like, oh no. Yeah. It is. Yeah. I'm kind of with Luke too. Like certain positive karmas can kind of be a liability.
You feel in the next line, even if that chief to me higher with the diva, a human diva would be a god or a demigod.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, yeah. So it's a good. Yeah. Yeah. So that's seen the higher realms are human realm, Jel's God, and the God realm. Sometimes, yeah, God realm birth could be somebody who's extremely experienced in calm body meditation or some of the meditative absorptions where we haven't realized selflessness and realized emptiness of mind, emptiness of self, but um, but we've been able to cultivate this kind of formless bliss where like there's certain absorptions where you don't feel a body, like you don't feel your body. Senses are absorbed. You don't experience senses. You're just in this kind of blissful consciousness, and then that can create a kind of a habitual pattern that can ripen as God realm birth, actually. Because like when you die, like your mind is so attuned to that kind of way of being that's your throwing karma ends up being like that's what propels you into the next life because you've cultivated that so powerful. Yeah, actually, I heard Robert Thurman's told this story a bunch where he was a young monk in India in the '60s. He would go into these kind of deep absorptions in the middle of the night, like 2 or 3 in the morning, and his teacher, I can't remember his name, could sense that and would come over and like knock him out of it and say like this isn't good for you right now, like maybe later, but and he was saying like it feels good actually. He thinks it's actually a good thing. Like you're just going as kind of quiet, peaceful. Like Buddhists were supposed to be peaceful and like calm, peaceful, clear mind, and all this stuff actually starts to happen. But it's an absorptive state that can create a karmic pattern that can be an opposite. Anyway, so if that comes up for you, the next. uh, yeah. So anyway, so maybe we move on to the next verse. Uh, in dependence upon that, even if I achieve the mere higher rebirth of a deva, a human, I will still have to experience suffering endlessly in samsara, because of not having abandoned and being under the control of the disturbing thought obscurations. Therefore, please bless me to reflect well upon the way of circling of samsara, and to continuously follow day and night the path of the 3 types of precious trainings, the principal method for becoming free from samsara. Any thoughts or questions coming up on that verse?
Yeah, so it seems like the previous verse is really getting the mindset on just acknowledging the fact that you shouldn't be taking this life for granted and don't create any more negative karmas. And then this verse is more of a wish to start getting on the path of how to free yourself from those. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. To recognize the importance of becoming free from samsara.
Yeah. Yeah. So kind of thought it was just kind of reflecting on the last two verses is not that really was a question, but it was kind of like that. So the last verse was kind of not taking our life for granted, free and positive karma, and then going a step further, wanting to become free from samsara as well. So it's like subtlety. So the first step is just like um, getting our kind of ethical ground, like creating positive karma, like knowing what karma is, creating positive karma, and starting to develop an understanding of the three jewels, the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Yeah, and that kind of protects us from those kind of very difficult states of what we were talking about before. But it's still karma, like Lama Yeshe would say, karma is uncontrolled experience. Karma is still, even if it's positive force, it's still a force that's propelling you. It's not something that you have total control over. When it ripens, it ripens. And so, so positive karma isn't liberation, it's just positive experience. And um, yeah. But we need to kind of start there because we need that kind of basis to be able to realize selflessness, which is this verse. It takes we need that ground, and we need a positive, stable self before we can uh, recognize selflessness. We can't kind of skip that step.
And the other thing that's really important is that you even get to here where you can even by achieve the higher rebirth. The first step is what's keeping you from. The first step is what keeps you going in the cycle because you're not going to do it all in one lifetime. So you need to have that foundation of always being given the opportunity to try, and the next lifetime try again.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So ethics and refuge are the basis for having a human life and having those connections to continue the spiritual path, not fall wayward, basically. And but then that's not necessarily the goal. The goal is to um, complete the path, and this is the kind of what they call the middle level, middle scope, where we're just wanting to recognize selflessness. And so this isn't talking about the capacities of bodhichitta and the bodhisattva path of benefiting others and developing this kind of fully awakened state that's also not just a consciousness that's uh, peaceful, but also has this capacity to benefit and um, guide others. So nirvana is more just developing a peace and self peace in the consciousness from the point of view of this tradition. Um, but it doesn't have the full capacity of being able to manifest that kind of awakened mind in ways and communicate that in ways that actually um, benefits others. Yeah. Uh, And does anybody know the 3 types of precious trainings, 3 higher trainings? Little pop quiz.
How was that precious, the 3 precious training for just, hearing and reading and looking at that, analyzing and that.
Those, close. They're kind of mixed. That's the 3 wisdoms. 3 higher trainings: ethics, Shila, Samadhi, Prajna. So ethics, concentration, wisdom. So pretty similar. But so like we were saying, ethics, and then Samadhi is developing that kind of calm, clear mind. And we use the calm and clear mind as the basis to develop insight. Actually, the nature of self. And so those 3 trainings are associated with that's what the main causes of developing self-liberation.
What was the 3rd one, Justin? It was
Prajna, wisdom of selflessness.
wisdom. Selflessness. Thank you.
Ethics, concentration, or samadhi, and wisdom, prajna.
Justin,
Mm-hmm.
is the prajna, is that the wisdom of selflessness through emptiness, through realizing emptiness so that the I and the ego don't grasp? Thank you.
Insight of emptiness, wisdom of selflessness, of emptiness. And then the next verse, in dependence upon that, even if I achieve mere liberation, since there's no sentient being of 6 types that has not been my father or mother, please bless me to think I must fulfill their purpose and turn away from the lower happiness of nirvana. Then please bless me to generate precious bodhichitta by equalizing and exchanging myself with others, and to follow the conduct of the conqueror sons, 6 paramitas, and so forth. So this becomes the next step. So it's like, oh, that sounds awesome. That's what I should do. Should achieve nirvana and 3 precious trainings, mental peace. But then it's like that's just looking at us. So then we look outwards and see that there's no. That's just us. We're only thinking of our own well-being. And so this next line, since there's no sentient being of 6 types who's not been my father or mother, please bless me to think I must fulfill their purpose and turn away from the lower happiness of nirvana. And then please bless me to generate precious bodhichitta. So this is describing, so there's generally 2 kind of traditions or methods of generating bodhicitta or cultivating that in us. And one's the 7-step cause and effect, and then exchange yourself and others. And so these first few lines are talking about the sometimes called 6 causes and 1 effect. We use this contemplation that every being has been kind and close to us. And the basis of that is what we were talking about Tuesday night, that since our consciousness and our mind is not a physical phenomenon from the Buddhist point of view, when our physical body dies, can't hold it. It doesn't sever the continuity of consciousness, because consciousness wasn't caused by physical, wasn't substance. It wasn't caused by sperm and egg. It wasn't caused by the substances that compose the brain or our neurology. Not a physical substance, doesn't have a physical nature. It's just clarity and awareness. It knows, and it's clear and aware. It's merely just this clarity and awareness. And because it has that nature, what causes it is the previous moment of mind. Consciousness causes consciousness. So the previous moment of consciousness is the cause of this moment of consciousness from a Buddhist point of view. And this continuity. So because that continuity is there, in the first moment of this lifetime, the cause of that first moment of consciousness of this lifetime was the previous moment of consciousness that was before this lifetime. And that continuity, from Buddha's point of view, is basically eternal. Like there's no beginning, no end to it, because the physical matter can't destroy awareness. Nothing can actually destroy awareness. Yeah, so there's this kind of vast idea of a beginningless time. And if that's the case, then we've been kind of circling around a lot of we've been hanging out with each other forever. And we've been everything for each other. We've been friends, enemies, strangers, and all the like. We've been parents, children. We've been everything to each other from this kind of vast kind of idea. And so the point of this contemplation is to start to. It's a little bit tough in modern times because parent relationships in Western culture or modern culture maybe is difficult. But back in the day, this was the easy one, maybe of just like, oh, my mom, yeah, I love my mom. And the point of it is to kind of summon up a sense of affection and closeness. And because particularly the mother is kind of a secular sign of selfless love. Like the kind of mother is kind of the selfless sacrifice. We try to kind of bring up a sense of affection, closeness, and kind of just like it's like a devotion. Like this being's been so kind to me. Of course, I just want to care for them. So that's the point: is to develop that care. And so, mother or father are difficult. Both are one or the other. We could, if we can use maybe somebody who's a very close friend, somebody we have this kind of very kind of clean, deep kind of affection towards. And I've seen another way of going about it too. Just seeing the kind of vast interdependence, like how we're all dependent on each other. So the point is to develop a sense of feeling that beings are kindness in others. So beings have been kind to us, and we want to. It's officially called wishing to repay their kindness. We wish to kind of repay their kindness, or kind of honor that kindness, or live our lives to honor that kindness. And so another way of looking at it without this kind of cosmic rebirth and parental relationship is just seeing like how like our clothes come from other beings, our food comes from other beings. Like the roads to drive here or go to work. Everything comes from other beings. Our language, comes from other everything. Education or ability to communicate comes from other beings. And we can, look at it that way. This like everything that I've ever benefited from or enjoyed has come from others, this kindness to others. So so that can be another kind of route to take if this other one's difficult. Because again, it's wanting to develop a kind of closeness and affection for all life, and this kind of but not and this kind of wish to kind of honor and repay and become of service. So because this is the kind of foundational steps to develop the kind of the bodhisattva outlook. So that's the end point of this kind of process. So then bless me to think I must fulfill their purpose. And their purpose in life is happiness. Their potential is the Buddha nature. So please bless me to think I must fulfill and to be of service to help beings to fulfill their full potential. And so I turn away from just the lower striving for my own inner peace. And so here it's like, well, what's beyond nirvana? That's like, what can possibly be beyond nirvana? And the Mahayana view of the awakened state, full awakening, is like I was saying, there's a self-liberated side, what they call Dharmakaya, and then there's the kind of, capacity to manifest. So manifest that wisdom. So a Buddha can take form, any type of form, can kind of speak and manifest on an energetic level, has this kind of vast capacity, and a Buddha is just like kind of a spontaneous. Buddhahood is just like a spontaneous expression of this reality. So a Buddha can only communicate awakening, basically. Whether it takes us 1,000 lifetimes to hear it from the Buddha or whatever, like that's different. But like it's just a spontaneous kind of reflection of this kind of awakened potential, awakened quality. Middle Yeah, Lou was saying in the tradition, it's kind of like if attaining nirvana too soon, it can become from the Mahayana point of view, it can become an obstacle because that peace is so strong that you won't, like they say, it's hard to generate compassion if you're in this incredible state of peace. So that's from the. I'm just going to say that's from the Mahayana point of view. In one of my classes on the Hinayana or the Theravada tradition, we read this at Naropa. We read a biography of this great Thai forest master, and his life was incredible. Like great realization. He went through the Thai tradition, the Theravada tradition, where there was this kind of explicit bodhisattva process and training. But he was, sounded like a bodhisattva. Like he was teaching to kind of, at nighttime he would teach to non-human beings, and he was doing all this bodhisattva activity. So sometimes there's in the Tibetan tradition there's like a straw man art, like there's a straw man to help kind of clarify the point and the structure. And I don't know enough about the Theravada tradition. I know that questions come up, like it's the Mahayana take on their kind of Theravada nirvana, but what that state could be. Yeah, and actually, I haven't read it, but there's some books. I think His Holiness has some dialogue. I think the Tibetan children help write with the one teacher, many traditions. I think it kind of looks at the kind of the old school or the Theravada tradition and the Mahayana tradition, similarities and differences.
But the Theravada is necessary for the mind. It's just
Yeah.
you can't throw it out.
Yeah. Yeah, and for the purpose of the Mahayana, conceptualizing that all is true, and yeah, there just might be other sides of the story, but from the kind of package of how we're kind of developing our perspective, not questioning that. Yeah, so having that kind of conception and the potential of the fully awakened state and uh, uh, is kind of the basis for turning away from this kind of just a self path, self liberation path. And so, yeah, so we have this kind of wish to repay, and then the next steps are love and compassion. So we develop love and compassion. So we see that we have this kindness and wish to be of service to beings, and then we then turn our gaze to them, see actually how they're doing, and we see that they're okay, yeah, they're suffering. Um, Loving kindness, we do kind of loving, wish that they would have happiness, wish they'd be free from suffering, and then we take that further into this kind of universal attitude. It's like, may all beings be free of suffering. Is there anything I can do about it? And then at that point, then we bring in this kind of idea. Well, the best thing I can do is actually become fully enlightened. Then I can be a perfect, best service, or the most capacity to serve. And so, yeah, and so that's bodhicitta. Is this kind of wish that, based on loving kindness, affectionate loving kindness and compassion, and wish, and gratitude, and wish to repay, we take up this ideal of striving for awakening. So that's the one track, and this other track is practices of what they call equalizing, exchanging self and others. And so this is their kind of thought trainings to ways of contemplating to help us turn from a self-preoccupied place to other kind of a other-centered place. Tonglen is one practice where we're taking on suffering and giving happiness. And there's different logics of, I'm just one person, others are infinite. Why not I strive for the benefit of all beings and not just myself? Just logically, if I'm trying for good, it's like, why not go for the good of all instead of just the good of myself? But ourselves are included in that. We are part of the all sentient beings, but it's kind of having that kind of open-hearted, kind of trying to overthrow or flip this kind of anxious, selfish preoccupation with self, and develop a sense of open-hearted devotion to others. And then based on, and so then we have that attitude of bodhicitta, and then that's called aspiring bodhicitta. And then we have, based on the aspiration of bodhicitta, then we do what's called engaging bodhicitta. So we live it out. And so that's the last line, following the conduct of the conqueror's sons, the 6 paramitas, and so forth. Conqueror's sons is another word for a bodhisattva. So conqueror is a Buddha, son or child. The gender thing is, I think, is linked to like kings, I think, or something like kings, and then the heir of a king is a prince. So that's I think it's used sons, but conqueror's children. Because Buddha and Bodhisattva is like a Buddha to be. It's going to grow into Buddhahood. So it's like, that's why they say child, or compared to child.
I just add the importance of that equalizing is that if there ever comes a time you can lose bodhicitta unless you attain a certain level. And the main way to lose bodhicitta is to safety self, that's one person I don't know how.
Mm.
And that just blows all your bodhichitta right out of the water.
Mm. Oh.
And that's why it's so important to equalize. See, everybody's equal. And you don't ever want to think run across a person where you think, I want to help them.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, Joe, hear that? Lou was saying the importance of the equalizing self and others is that if there's there's a danger for us to lose our bodhicitta if there's somebody we don't actually want to include. Challenges come up, and Tonglen can be one of those kind of practices where there's, when we're trained in Tonglen enough where we're familiar with it, if there's people who are challenging with us, that can be a kind of a powerful practice to use to help us not shut down in anger and resentment, and try to stay open-hearted. Because the other one, the other steps, it's kind of it can be very universal, and there's jokes like all sentient beings except the people in front of me, or whatever. It gets very cosmic, and we can miss out the practical where exchanging self and others, it's a bit more. And also just that kind of innate sense of like I'm not the most. Just feeling like my situation's what I should spend my my focus on. It's kind of helping us kind of get over that, which is healing. Like it's that mind is like loneliness and self preoccupation and anxiety is actually it's very painful. So it's a invitation or method to help us overcome that and feel a sense of connection and equality and closeness. We can continue. We're almost finished with the lamrim part. Having trained my mind in the common path in that way, I'll not be upset even if I have to experience the sufferings of samsara for a long time. However, please bless me to look at sentient beings with extraordinary, unbearable compassion, and to enter the quick path of the Vajrayana teachings. Then please bless me to protect my vows and samayas more than my life, and to quickly accomplish the unified Vajradhara state, one brief lifetime of this degenerate time. So we've so having trained my mind in the common path. The common path is the sutra path. So everything we've been speaking of up until now was considered a common path. Up to bodhicitta and the six paramitas, engaging bodhicitta. And the six paramitas are the living on the basis of bodhicitta, the generosity, paramita of generosity, ethics, patience, joyful perseverance, meditation or concentration, or samadhi, developing clarity, and then wisdom of emptiness. And so with emptiness, and we use emptiness and bodhicitta in engaging in all of our life activities of generosity, ethics. Generosity can be giving material things, also can be giving psychological support, spiritual support. So any giving of self. And then ethics is not harming and also protecting beings as best you can. And then based on bodhicitta and emptiness, practicing patience, practicing enthusiasm for practice, and then developing the clarity and calm samadhi or calm abiding to help us with all those practices of generosity and most importantly help us develop that kind of wisdom of selflessness. So that's the common path. And has this kind of vast, the Bodhisattva outlook is that as long as it takes, free sentient beings from suffering. But however, please bless me, look at sentient beings with extraordinary, unbearable compassion and enter the quick path of the Vajrayana teachings. So this tradition, the tantric methods seem to be quicker than the paramita practices. They're just more kind of powerful and speedier practices just by the nature of the techniques. And so the extraordinary, unbearable compassion, it's like, okay, I'm willing to do this forever, but why not speed it up? Kind of thing. Why not? Why not? Why not use the best technology or whatever to develop myself in the quickest way possible, so that I can be of service as quick as possible and as best I can. So so the Vajrayana is called the quick path because of the quality of the nature of the practices. And then, the Tantric path has vows, and samayas mean kind of promises or pledges. So they're like, or commitments. So vows and commitments. So the vows, just like there's refuge vows. So it kind of creates a kind of container for your refuge practice. So certain things are helpful for cultivating, developing refuge, and certain things to avoid that kind of counter that. Same with there's bodhisattva vows. When you take bodhisattva vows, there's things to avoid and things to practice to help develop our bodhicitta and help develop bodhisattva practice. So the vows, bodhisattva vows, are a kind of container to help us develop. And then the same with the tantric tradition. There's a kind of set of vows that also kind of create a container for healthy tantric practice. So we do tantric practice on the basis of bodhicitta and samayas. And then to quickly accomplish the unified Vajrayana state is the tantric language for describing enlightenment or Buddhahood. In one brief lifetime of this degenerate time. And so they say it's possible to, the quickest possible path to like full enlightenment is like 3 years, 3 months, 3 weeks, 3 days. For somebody advanced, because the methods are quite powerful. So there's a potential to advance, where in the Mahayana it generally says it take like 1,000, just inconceivable amount of time.
I've heard that the reason it's so fast is that in the Mahayana path you do a method and you do everything. But in the tantric path you do it at the same time. You do it together. All the practice you do combine with and within the same time.
So, simultaneous. Lou was saying that with the Mahayana, the Sutra path, you're developing the kind of skillful liberated method, skillful method, and wisdom. Kind of you're interchanging. Like now I'm doing the compassion wing of development, and then I'm doing the wisdom wing of development, and you can't do them simultaneously. But with the deity yoga, it allows to do them simultaneously. Um, yeah, yeah, yeah. And some say the tantra, uh, the it's quicker too because the methods to develop concentration or develop clarity and subtlety of awareness are blissful, they're enjoyable, and they're kind of powerful like tools where or powerful objects to rest our mind into. Um, so they can be helpful for, especially in like kind of time of the world where it's not very peaceful and conducive for practice. It can kind of harness, uses our, uses enjoyment as a way of harnessing our attention and helping subtleize our kind of, awareness. And then, and then because the deities are nature of light, and it's like they're reflecting this kind of dual aspect of reality where you're manifesting, expressing, developing kind of compassionate activity. At the same time, you're also aware that the deity is empty. So there's an ability to hold recognition of emptiness and develop the kind of compassionate activity at the same time. Yeah, and in this tradition, we kind of do them both simultaneously. So the sutra path creates the kind of psychological ground that's healthy for tantra to make sense, because um, so that we have bases of compassion and nonviolence, and we have some understanding of emptiness and the nature of selflessness and how things appear but are empty, that allow when we do deity yoga practice where we're meditating ourselves as deity, because it's an expression of that compassion, bodhichitta, and emptiness at the same time. It's like it's just helping us, um, and they kind of work together. So, like if I'm doing Chenrezig practice, Buddha compassion practice, that can help kind of heal or kind of process things on a deeper level. So then, when I read about compassion and the sutra path, it's clearer. Like it kind of in the same way, read about compassion practice, do Tonglen, suffering and so forth. It makes my Chenrezig practice more powerful. Like they both kind of support each other. Um, so that was the whole. I think we'll stop there, and then the next week it goes into the Shantideva verses and other verses. So it was a lot. Um, so maybe we can spend the next few minutes just in quiet meditation. And if there's something that kind of touched us or is alive for us in what we discussed tonight, if that's present in your mind, feel free to allow that contemplation to be there. Maybe it's something that we want to spend time with or cultivate. And so, And I feel like maybe I invite you to maybe make it an aspiration based on our discussion tonight. And maybe we can dedicate that whatever positive and some energy we may have generated together tonight, may it become causes for us to awaken our full potential. So we may be of lasting value to all living beings without exception, to help enable them to awaken their full potential. And may the supreme jewel bodhichitta, where it's not yet grown, begin to grow. Where it has begun to grow, may increase unceasingly for the welfare of sentient beings. And so maybe we can recite together the last stanza of this text. It's one of His Holiness's favorite verses. And as long as space remains, as long as transmigratory beings remain, until then may I too remain, to dispel the suffering of transmigratory beings. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Justin.